The beast arrived under full restraint, dragged into the war deck beneath white medical lights, while 8 armed officers kept every rifle locked on its body. Even wounded, it still looked capable of tearing through steel. Blood ran slowly across the platform, while command screens repeated the same order: do not approach. No medic on board had agreed to go near it after 2 drones were destroyed in seconds. Then the outer security door opened, and a human medic entered carrying only a field kit. He stopped beside the creature, studied the wound, and said quietly, "It's not fighting anymore." A second later, one massive eye opened and fixed on him. The war deck remained silent as the human medic crossed the security line no one else had dared to pass. Every rifle adjusted with him, not because he moved quickly, but because he did not. That calm unsettled them more than panic would have. Officers who had spent entire campaigns studying predatory species understood violence. They understood panic. They understood the mathematics of force, containment, suppression, and necessary loss. What none of them understood was why a human with nothing but a field kit and one blood-stained pair of gloves would walk toward a wounded battlefield beast that had already shattered 2 drones and nearly broken containment while half sedated. The creature watched him with one open eye. Not wild, not calm, aware. Its breathing came in slow, broken pulls that sent a low vibration through the metal deck beneath their boots. Each breath sounded wrong, too shallow on the intake, too guarded on the release. The nearest command analyst noticed it too, but said nothing. Every screen on the upper tier kept feeding the same conclusion into central command. Tissue collapse progressing, neurological stress unstable, physical intervention not advised. The human stopped at the edge of the platform and did not reach for his tools. That changed the deck, because every medic before him had behaved like a technician confronting a threat. They had tried to scan first, sedate further, stabilize from distance, avoid direct variables. Their methods were clean, their procedure flawless, their results disastrous. But this human did nothing at all for 3 full seconds. He simply looked. Part 2. His hand remained against the creature's neck, while the extraction tool hovered just above the fractured lower plate. No one on the war deck moved. Even the officers behind the upper command glass seemed to forget the consoles beneath their hands, as if any sound might break whatever fragile balance had formed around that platform. The beast watched the metal instrument approach. Its eye narrowed, not in aggression, in calculation. The medic noticed immediately. "Easy," he said, barely above a whisper, though no one could tell whether he was speaking to the creature or to himself. The nearest security commander tightened his grip on the rifle. "Human, step back if muscular tension increases." The medic did not answer. He lowered the tool until it touched the outer edge of the damaged plate. The reaction came at once. A ripple crossed the creature's torso, powerful enough to make the gravitic restraints hum under strain. Warning lights flashed across 2 containment panels. One tactical officer instinctively lifted his weapon higher, waiting for the strike that had already destroyed 2 drones earlier that cycle. But again, the violence did not come. Instead, the beast's breathing changed. It stopped entirely for 1 second as if bracing, then released another controlled breath, longer than the last. That changed the deck again, because no one aboard had expected cooperation. The human adjusted the angle of the tool, feeling resistance beneath the armor-like tissue. His left hand remained steady against the neck, fingers measuring each muscular tremor before it spread. "There," he murmured. The tool caught something metallic beneath the fractured layer, a shard, small but lodged deep enough to force every breath into pain. One diagnostic officer above the deck suddenly leaned toward his monitor. He found foreign debris. The words spread through command slower than they should have, as though even the computers needed a second to accept that visual analysis had succeeded where full-spectrum scans had failed. The medic tightened his grip, carefully. No sudden force. He tested the angle once, twice, then pulled. The shard came free with a wet metallic sound that echoed far louder than it should have inside the chamber. The beast convulsed, Several officers shouted at once. Weapons snapped fully upward. Containment alarms armed instantly. For half a second, everyone believed the next movement would tear the deck apart. But the creature did not attack. It released the deepest breath yet. A full breath, for the first time since entering the ship. Blood followed, dark and heavy, spreading beneath the lower plates now that the obstruction was gone. The medic dropped the shard into the tray beside him without looking away. "Pressure release," he said. His voice remained calm, almost clinical. But the command screens above him changed immediately. Heart rhythm stabilized, neural spikes dropped, respiratory failure warnings disappeared one by one. No one answered immediately, because suddenly the impossible had become measurable. A senior analyst checked the readings twice before speaking. "Stress markers are falling." Another officer looked from the monitor back to the platform. How? No one had an answer ready. Because the answer was kneeling directly in front of them, with one bare hand still resting against a predator, no military manual classified as touch-safe under any known condition. What unsettled them most was that the beast itself now looked different. Its jaw had loosened. The eye no longer tracked every rifle around the room, only the human, as if all threat calculations had narrowed to a single figure standing nearest the wound. The medic opened a sealant pack from the field kit and applied pressure directly over the exposed fracture line. Again, no machine, no drone, no sterile extension arm, only his own hands. One officer near command glass spoke quietly enough that only those nearby heard it. It should not be allowing this, but it was. The creature lowered its head by a fraction, not from weakness, but from something harder to define: acceptance. The medic continued sealing the wound layer by layer, pressing carefully along the damaged edge while watching each breath return deeper than before. Then the beast shifted, not violently, just enough for one restraint chain to pull against its anchor. Every rifle rose again. The human looked up this time. "Do not fire." That answer landed harder than expected because he did not shout it. He said it the way someone states an obvious fact. The security commander hesitated. For the first time since the creature arrived, armed command waited for the human instead of protocol. The beast lifted its head slowly. White light caught the fractured ridges along its face. Every officer on the deck expected teeth, expected force, expected instinct to return. Instead, the creature leaned forward only slightly until its head hovered near the medic's shoulder and stopped there. No strike, no warning, only stillness. The entire war deck fell silent again, because now every officer present understood they were no longer witnessing treatment. They were witnessing something no military doctrine had prepared language for. And above them, Central Command quietly removed firing authorization from every rifle on the deck. Part 3. No one on the war deck trusted what they were seeing, even after the command screens confirmed it. The creature's vital readings continued to stabilize, each line on the monitors flattening where moments earlier they had been climbing toward terminal collapse. The lower thoracic pressure had dropped. Oxygen intake had improved. Neural stress no longer triggered containment alerts every few seconds. Yet none of that explained the silence that had settled across the chamber. Because the silence was no longer fear alone, it was disbelief. The beast remained motionless beside the human medic, its massive head lowered just enough that the fractured ridge above one eye nearly aligned with the medic's shoulder. The posture looked impossible for a species catalogued across military archives as incapable of passive contact under battlefield conditions. One tactical observer finally spoke, his voice low enough that it barely crossed the upper deck. "It recognizes him," a command analyst answered without looking away from the screens. No documented pattern supports recognition after first contact, but even that answer lacked conviction, because suddenly documentation felt very far away from what stood beneath the medical lights. The human finished sealing the outer fracture and checked the breathing again with his hand still resting against the creature's neck. The rhythm had changed completely now, slower, deeper, The guarded hesitation from before had faded, replaced by controlled intake that no longer triggered muscular defense near the wound. That changed the deck in a quieter way than before. Until then, many officers had still expected the calm to break at any second, as if the beast were only pausing before instinct returned. But the longer the medic remained there unharmed, the more the atmosphere shifted from combat readiness into something far less familiar: observation without explanation. The medic opened another compartment in the field kit and removed a narrow injector. That motion brought immediate tension back. 3 rifles lifted again. A warning light flashed near containment control. One security officer stepped forward. State intent before further intervention. The medic checked the injector cartridge, adjusted dosage manually, then answered without urgency. Pain suppressant. The officer frowned. That species rejected all chemical stabilization. It rejected forced delivery, the medic replied. No one answered immediately because that distinction had not appeared in any report. He turned the injector in his hand so the creature could see it. A simple movement, almost absurd in the eyes of everyone watching, as though explanation itself mattered to something that should not understand intention beyond threat. Yet the beast followed the motion carefully. Its eye remained fixed on the injector, then shifted back to the medic's face. No aggression, no recoil. The medic lowered his voice. This will hurt less after. Again, impossible language for that deck. No tactical code, no military phrasing, only the quiet tone used beside injured bodies when fear had to be lowered before pain could be touched. He pressed the injector carefully between 2 smaller plates near the upper shoulder. The reaction came instantly. The beast's muscles tightened so hard, the nearest restraint anchor sparked under sudden load. Officers flinched. One containment siren armed automatically before command overrode it, but there was no strike. Only one violent breath, then another, then stillness. The suppressant entered cleanly. Monitors adjusted again. Pain markers fell. For the first time since capture, every biological warning on the central screen moved into controlled range. A technician near Central Command whispered something no one expected to hear inside a military bay. It trusted him enough not to fight the pain. That answer landed harder than expected because no one contradicted it. The medic withdrew the injector and stepped back half a pace, not leaving entirely, just enough to study whether movement alone would trigger defense. The beast lifted its head slightly. Its gaze followed him. Then slowly it unfolded the injured forelimb that had remained locked beneath its body since arrival. A sharp intake of breath crossed the deck. Because that limb had not moved once during containment, every officer present understood immediately what that meant. It had not been protecting itself. It had been hiding the injury. Beneath the limb, pressed close against the lower side of its torso, a second fracture line became visible under the white light. Smaller, almost hidden beneath dried blood and hardened debris. The medic saw it instantly. Of course he did. What unsettled them most now was how naturally he kept finding what machines had missed. He crouched again, studying the angle, then looked toward command for the first time with clear authority in his voice. "I need the left restraint loosened." The response came immediately. "Denied." Standard protocol answered before any individual officer could think. The medic did not argue. He simply looked back at the wound. If that restraint stays locked, the plate tears when it breathes deeper. Silence followed. Command screens updated the new fracture model. Internal projections shifted. Again, the human was right. A senior command officer gave the order quietly. "Reduce left side gravitic load by 10%. The restraint released with a low mechanical hum. Every rifle rose another inch, ready for catastrophic movement. The beast inhaled. This time, D Part 4. The silence on the war deck no longer belonged to fear. It had become something rarer inside military command, restraint born from uncertainty. No one wanted to interrupt what had already overturned every assumption written into the ship's containment doctrine. The beast remained still beneath the white lights, breathing deeper now, the earlier strain gone from each inhale. Blood still marked the platform, but no fresh surge escaped the sealed fracture lines. Its massive chest rose and fell with controlled rhythm, and every monitor above the deck confirmed what no one had expected to witness when the transport platform first descended: survival. The human medic stayed close, one hand resting lightly against the upper ridge of its shoulder, as though confirming that calm had not broken. He no longer looked like someone inside hostile containment. He looked like he belonged in the only stable point left inside the chamber. Above him, Central Command replayed the biometric timeline twice: sedation failure, containment instability, neural aggression, then sudden stabilization beginning exactly at first physical contact. One command analyst spoke without realizing his microphone remained open across the deck. "The shift begins when contact is established," a second voice answered from tactical control. "No, earlier." Earlier? When he stopped treating it like a threat, that answer landed harder than expected, because no one wanted to admit the implication inside a military vessel built entirely around threat classification. The medic checked the second fracture beneath the forelimb once more, pressing carefully along the outer plate while watching the creature's breathing. The beast did not resist. Instead, it shifted slightly to allow better access, a movement so controlled that even the officers nearest the platform hesitated before reacting. One restraint line loosened under reduced tension. No alarm followed, no warning, just another impossible adjustment that no one had prepared for. The medic applied one final layer of sealant and closed the field kit halfway, but before he could rise fully, the beast opened its eyes again, both of them, clear now, focused, every rifle lifted by instinct despite command having removed active firing authority moments earlier. The head rose slowly, higher than before. The full scale of the creature returned all at once, towering even while restrained, its fractured biological armor catching the light like broken black metal. Officers near the lower deck instinctively stepped back. One technician dropped a data slate that cracked against the floor, but no one looked down, because every eye stayed fixed on the platform. The beast turned its head, not toward command, not toward the weapons, toward the human. The medic did not retreat. He stood still, shoulders level, eyes on the creature's face, as if waiting for a decision no scanner could predict. What unsettled them most was that the beast seemed to study him now, with complete awareness. Not pain, not sedation, not confusion, but deliberate recognition. Then it lowered its head, slowly, until the front ridge of its skull stopped inches from the medic's chest. No strike, no warning display, no predatory tension. Only a controlled lowering, precise enough that everyone on the deck understood this was intentional. The entire war deck fell silent again. Even command forgot to speak, because what stood before them no longer resembled captured violence. It resembled acknowledgement. One officer near central glass whispered the only phrase anyone dared say aloud: "It knows." No one corrected him. The medic raised one hand carefully and placed it once more against the side of the creature's face, just beneath the fractured ridge where the armor softened near the eye. The beast did not move. Its breathing remained steady, and for one brief moment, every armed officer aboard that deck stood frozen, while the most dangerous organism any of them had ever encountered accepted human contact as if that had always been possible. Then the restraint indicators changed, one by one. Without command input, the beast had stopped resisting so completely that automatic containment began reducing force on its own. The nearest technician looked up sharply. "Gravitic load is dropping," a commander answered immediately. "Lock it." But the medic spoke before the override executed. "Wait." That single word stopped the deck more effectively than rank. The commander turned toward him, visibly irritated for the first time. "You are asking command to suspend containment? I'm asking you to notice it hasn't tried once." The answer came calm, almost quiet, but impossible to ignore. The commander looked back toward the platform. He hated that the human was right. Not once since contact had the beast attempted force. Not once after pain began to leave. Not once after breathing returned. Fear and danger were not always the same thing. That realization moved through the room slower than data, but heavier. The medic finally closed the field kit fully and stepped half a pace back. The beast watched him. Then, with one slow, controlled motion, it lowered its body again onto the platform, not collapsing, not surrendering, simply resting under reduced restraint, like something exhausted enough to choose stillness over survival instinct. The monitors above the deck shifted fully into recovery range. For the first time since capture, no warning lights remained. And across the upper command tier, officers who had entered that chamber prepared for biological failure now stared downward at one human medic who had altered the logic of an entire war deck without raising his voice once. Ending later, the official report would classify the event under controlled medical anomaly, cross-species behavioral deviation, and unverified response under reduced threat conditions. The language satisfied command because military systems preferred explanations that fit inside known categories. But no one who had stood on that deck believed the report captured what had actually happened beneath those lights. They had watched a creature capable of destroying armored formations stop resisting under one human hand. They had watched machines fail where observation succeeded. They had watched fear leave a body the moment pain was understood correctly. That changed the deck long after the chamber reopened. In the hours that followed, officers returned to normal stations. Tactical systems resumed standard operation, and the beast was transferred to monitored recovery under reduced restraint. Yet something subtle had shifted inside command itself. Conversations that normally centered on threat ratios and containment probabilities now returned again and again to one detail no report explained well enough: why the creature had chosen stillness only after the human arrived. One senior officer reviewed the medical footage 3 times before finally asking the medic directly, "What did you see that our systems missed?" The human removed his gloves slowly before answering, the part where it stopped fighting and started protecting the pain. No one answered immediately, because that answer landed harder than expected, not technical, not dramatic, just simple enough to expose how much had been overlooked by every screen surrounding them. Above the recovery chamber, the beast rested without resistance, its breathing now deep and stable beneath dimmed medical light. It no longer reacted when staff entered. But whenever the human medic crossed the threshold, one eye opened briefly, then closed again, as if recognition no longer required caution. And across military sectors far beyond that ship, the story spread in quieter forms than official transmissions ever allowed. Not about containment, not about sedation, not about protocol, about the moment an armed war deck discovered that understanding could interrupt violence faster than force. Because suddenly, everything looked different. And in later briefings, whenever younger officers asked why that footage remained archived under restricted command viewing, older personnel answered with the same line: "Humans notice what fear hides." And if you're human, subscribe, leave your like, and comment below. Humanity stands.